Well, we're here at the Academy Sports and Outdoors, Rigs and Techniques at the CCA Workbench, and we're going to talk a little bit about bait fishing.
Great.
Because you spend all your time bait fishing down here just about in South Florida, and you know a lot about taking care of them, which is very important. So when you're out trying to catch bait, what's your preferred method and why?
Well, cast nets are always, as Jimbo said, the quickest way to catch bait, but that works well when you're catching bait for the day.
Right.
But we do a lot of fishing in tournaments and, of course, trying to put bait away for a windy day when maybe it's not so easy to catch, and that's why we use sabikis.
And you put them in pens, right?
Yep.
As you can feed them. And how long do you feed them for?
Well, you know, we try not to get too attached. We don't name them.
Right.
Months.
And they've become super baits.
Yeah.
And that's why you win all those tournaments, because you got super giant baits right
we
there.
Talk to
swimming
them.
in them. Exactly. So you've developed a whole line of sabiki rigs, and I noticed we got some here. But what are the differences between, you know, some of these have red and green, and what's the difference?
Certain baits like color, like a Manhattan. You remember when we were kids, they'd eat a red ribbon rig.
Right.
So that's kind of good evidence that red is their attractive color. Sardines, ballyhoo like red, but like herring, greenies like green. So I'll always start out with this rig, an RGF4,
right,
or an RGF6, depending on the size of the bait. And that's kind of a starter rig. You get into a mark on your recorder, you drop down, you might be surprised. It might be a different species of bait than you expected. But if you have both colors working for you, you're ready.
You got the searcher going.
That's it.
I also noticed you got a little marker on there, SDH and MDH. What does that mean?
That's really related to the dehooker. Small dehooker, medium dehooker.
Because we never want to touch these baits, do we?
Not if we're going to try to keep them for any length of time or fish tournaments with them. So when you're trying to dehook these baits, if you use a fat wire, it could damage their mouth. And in the bait pen, they wouldn't be able to eat and sustain themselves. So on a small rig, we use a small, thin dehooker. But like on that white rig there, the
big fat one.
For like hardtails, you need a bigger dehooker, stronger wire, and you can get away with a little bit thicker wire.
I got you. So, you know, when you are sitting there getting ready to put these things on, what kind of weight are you using?
Well, we use 3 different sizes of weight, small, medium, large. Believe it or not, when you use too light of a weight, if you've ever had 2 hooks hooked together, that's because your weight was too light, 2 fish swam together, and then when you wind against the weight, they dehook. Because really, that works just like a dehooker. 2 hooks are hooked rigid, and the bait shakes its head and comes right off. So now you just lost 2 baits.
I see you also have that float there. What's that about?
That's a little top secret ballyhoo rig.
Let me hold it there.
Yeah.
Top secret ballyhoo.
Well, not so secret now, but I use it when I'm trying to catch ballyhoo on the surface. When you chum ballyhoo, they're right on top.
That probably disappears on my shirt, doesn't
it? Yes, it does. Should have got a different color. Gotcha. But anyways, that keeps your rig shallow. And believe it or not, most people don't know this, but a ballyhoo will eat a sabiki all day long. But you got to
I did not know that.
You need 2 things. You need it to stay on the surface, and you need a little weight to pull against, because ballyhoo go crazy when you hook them. And without that weight, if you just put the float on, it'll just tangle up.
Do you ever tip any of these things?
You can. But if they're biting good enough, we don't waste the time doing it.
You don't even do that, huh?
Yep.
Well, it's, one of the problems I always have is trying to get them out of the pack without tangling myself into the pile of pain that you were talking about before. So how do you get those things out?
So we start out with if you look at the back of most rigs, there's a snap swivel with the loop on it to hook the weight.
Right.
And then you've got a regular swivel. We just take the snap swivel, hook our rod to that.
Look at that.
And so now...
And it keep pulling it out.
We'll keep pulling it out. And now what you've done is 2 things. I know this sounds a little picky, but if you take the cellophane off the paper, sometimes it blows over. We don't like that. This keeps you from littering. Throw it in the garbage.
Right.
And then you have your snap swivel. Hook your weight on. That's why we do a little bit of mono. Just makes it an easy way to hook on your weight.
And it also allows you to grab the weight easier once you're starting to take these off.
Gives you a little more distance away from the hooks.
Right. Because that's what you do when you get this thing up to the boat and you're wanting to take these baits off. You use the hooker, the dehooker, and you just hold it over the... Oh, see, these things hook everything.
Yeah, that's their job. They're just doing their job.
So then you just hold this over the live well and go down with the...
So here's the little tip.
Bing, bing, bing.
We got the bait. Let go.
All right.
Got the bait on. When we get the bait near the surface, lift the rod straight up, grab the weight, horizontal. Baits are off the main line.
Mate can go down and bing, bing, bing.
Yeah, and then you take them off.
All
That's
right.
it. Tip of the week.
Well, I see also you have this you got these dip nets real quick. What's the difference? We got about 30 seconds to figure out what these things are for.
Well, we have different nets for different situations. If I'm going to put bait for any length of time in a bait pen, we use a wet net. It holds a little bit of water when you transfer the baits out of your boat.
Keeps them from freaking out because they're still wet?
They're still wet. And then like when you're fishing for the day, we just use a fine mesh net. The new net has an open pattern, goes through the water a little easier.
Get them out easy without hurting them.
Yep.
Well, thanks, man. Those are all good tips. I hope somebody listened to them.
Yeah.